no. We've done a lot here in the last couple of days. I want to give you guys a quick status on where we are, since I didn't really want to bore you with all the details of the reconstruction of the rear suspension, but that's really what I've been focusing on here. As you can see, I did remove the half shafts, and I cleaned up the half shafts and the hardware. These half shafts are in perfect condition. As you can tell, they are two-sided, so that means that one side bolts onto the hub side and the other side bolts onto the diff. So these guys are basically ready to go. I also installed the trailing arm bushings. The next thing we need to do is I want to show you exactly how to install these trailing arm bushings. These are Garagistic bushings, and they're pretty easy to install if you have the right tools. So here's our trailing arm bushing from Garagistic. Looks like a cock and balls, but for now, we're gonna take these guys, basically sandwich them on either side of the trailing arm, and then we press in the sleeve. Let me show you an easy way to do that using the draw horse. So this is the draw horse, and basically all you need to do is easily put in either side just like this. The idea is that you push these against this. Like I said, it can be on very loose, and then you lock, hold it, and then you press. And as you're pressing in, you're basically pressing in everything, all the bushings into the sleeve, into the trailing arm, that is. One more and I should get it in a good spot. There we go. Come on, there it is. All right. Lock it again. And I gotta tell you, without this tool, it makes pushing these bushings in a lot more difficult. Now the sleeve is also very similar. You basically put the chamfered edge of the sleeve into the bushing, doesn't matter which way, and then close this guy up on it, lock it down, and get it set and press. Do that a couple times. Pressed in. Now what we have to do is basically clean it up and make it look good again. And it is a ready to go trailing arm. All right, look what we got here. We got a sway bar that is basically completely ready to go. We've got our half shafts, we got our trailing arms with the bushings pressed in, and we have a rear subframe that has one subframe bushing pressed in. Let's do the other one together. So these are Garagistic bushings. They're basically rubber with an encapsulation of the 80A poly bushing material, and of course there's an aluminum sleeve in there. This is actually pretty cool, the way that they designed this, and it's got like the little indentations here for the nubs from the actual sleeve of the subframe to just slip right in there, so it actually clocks these things to an OEM clocking, which is pretty cool. So let's get the subframe up here. So as you can see, the bushing comes from below and it comes in just like that, as you can see from the one I've already done. This is a completely executed version and it is ready to install. So what we need to do is make sure that we have everything clocked correctly here. And I know I might not be in 100% frame here, but what I want to do is I want to soak this whole thing up with soapy water, and that's all that it is just soapy water. So what we want to do is just like that, get it in there, just get it started, right? And then, like I said, we can finish it up Just like that. All right. If I can just hold this in place, I can do the rest of it with the draw horse pretty easily. So here we go. See, the clocking is good. Slowly but surely, as I'm pushing down, it's squeezing in. Add a little bit more soap. And what's going to happen is the top side is going to bottom out on this before I get this thing fully seated. So I'm going to need to go to the bearing press to finish this up. And I'm getting pretty close right now. There we go, just hit it. You can see it right there, that the sleeve actually kind of is at the same level as the top of the subframe. So now we just got to take it to the press and finish it up there, and then this thing is fully seated as well. Now I'm pushing the bushing in pretty easily, actually. And it's just about fully seated in there. And it is good. Let's relieve it. See how everything turned out. Go. Fully seated, completely ready to go. So now we got some Pour 15. This is basically the very popular semi-gloss Pour 15 brush on, or you can spray it on, although I wouldn't really recommend putting this into your gun. And actually, one of the things that I've done to make this a little bit easier is to tape off the edge. There we go, right like that. You tape off the edge of it, and then when you dip it in, you can use that as your edge for the paintbrush, because if you get Pour 15 in here on the can, it's going to be really hard to get out, and your can's never going to seal quite right again. And if you do that, you could ruin the rest of whatever's left in the can. And this right here, this quart was $50. So really keep that in mind and be very careful when you use the Pour 15 in the can. On this E24, what we are doing now is installing the complete rear subframe and rear suspension, basically. And that includes park and brake stuff, that includes subframe, trailing arms, half shafts, differential, all that stuff. Now that everything is basically completely done and Pour 15 and brake lines have been installed, let me show you a quick update of what I've done in the last couple of minutes, and then we'll just basically start reassembling. realized here is that I needed to grease these guys in between. If you can see, it is very noisy, and I tried greasing on the insides and the outsides from where the trailing arm is currently sitting on the subframe, and it still squeaks. So what I need to do is I need to take this back apart, and I need to take the sleeves inside of the polyurethane bushings and lube them up on the outside of that and on the inside of the poly bushing, and then reinsert it, and hopefully this squeak will go away. Not bad for an uninterrupted time lapse, wouldn't you say? So now it's on to assembling the parking brakes, the rotor, and the caliper. Now the parking brake cable has been installed right here, and it is perfectly functional and in excellent condition. So now what we need to do is assemble the rear caliper, the parking brake hardware, make sure that we grease everything where everything should be greased, and just get it installed and get it moving. So before I put the engine back in to get it fitted one more time for things like the transmission tunnel here and other things, I wanted to paint the frame rails with Pour 15, just the frame rails, because we're gonna end up painting the rest of the engine bay with Schwartz Black base clear. But for now, I wanted to paint the engine frame rails and get that basically set so I don't have to worry about that later. What I did was I Pour 15'd a lot of the exposed metal, and it ended up going up into this little area too, and the brake booster mount, and that's okay because we're gonna end up sanding a lot of that down, and we're gonna end up laying that base clear that I was telling you about. In fact, it's gonna end up going in the entire engine bay, including the firewall, both of the pillars, and I did want to finish the electrical here, but for now, I wanted to just make sure that I didn't have any more exposed metal than I needed. And I got the frame rails painted, I got all the exposed metal painted on the inside of the engine bay. I think we covered so much in this episode of the E24 LT1. If you guys want to see what happens with the suspension, we're going to do in the next video, which is featured and sponsored by CATuned. They're the ones who provided the coilovers for this build. What we're going to do is get the engine installed into the engine bay. We're going to get the car sitting on its own weight, and we're going to level that suspension out. We need to make sure that we have weight in the front and the rear in order to get a really good leveling and figure out what the ride height's going to be on this beast. So that's going to be in the next episode coming not too distant future. My name is Frank Macaluso from Garagaholic. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Tell your friends about what I'm doing and this cool build that we have here, because we are almost done and getting ready for the final assembly of this and getting all the final touches and ready for first drive. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming up, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I am out of here. Later.